This is my first ever Trainings Week in review. I'm filming this on a Wednesday because my competition, European Championships 2025, is on a Thursday. And so I'm taking rest days on Wednesday and I train the other 6 days of the week. I'm going to start this video off by talking about my Thursday last week, which I think is a productive discussion for me because tomorrow is my next SBD session. Last week was essentially a week one. I hit 280 for 3, which is 617 pounds on deadlift, and then 240 for 3x3, which doesn't matter. Deadlift moved well, moved fluidly. I plan to hit 300 for 3 if I'm feeling good tomorrow. Should be a very simple week too. 300 is 661 pounds. On bench press, I did 180 for a double, which moved well, 396 pounds. Just moving forward, moving up another 5 kilos, 11 pounds to 185, 407 for this week. I did it in reverse order. I don't think I mentioned this. Deadlift, bench, because I then went on to do a lot of squatting. I did 235 kilos, which is 518 pounds. I did that for a set of 3, a set of 5, a set of 7, a set of 9, a set of 7, a set of 5, a set of 3. That moved, I was very happy with how that moved. Squats haven't been feeling good, and so I feel like I just need to get sets in, get reps in, get my body moving, get it going, and that felt phenomenal for that. I felt like I was squatting more normally, just moving through the motions, building strength and development. I plan to move that up to 242.5 tomorrow, which is a jump from 235 to 242.5, 518 to 534. I'm expecting it to move pretty well again, and I'm looking forward to it. That was my SBD last week, and amps me up for tomorrow. Should be exciting. Then after my SBD sessions, I always the next day only bench, and I do actually quite a simple bench, almost like a recovery bench session. 4 sets of 10 at 150 kilos, which is 331 pounds. Last week that moved simple, no issues. I think it had a little bit of a hiccup on the 10th rep or something, on the 10th rep of the 4th set. Does not matter, it's just about moving my arms, another day of just training. Then on that Saturday, I did something that was had me a little bit nervous at the beginning to try, which was 3 sets of 7 with 220 kilos, which is 484 pounds, without a belt and without sleeves on squats. That moved actually phenomenally well, which makes me very happy because that gives me confidence that I can build that up to give me more strength and to feel more confident and comfortable when I squat with sleeves and with a belt on. A big issue this prep into Euros for me has been my confidence in squatting and the familiarity with knee sleeves. I have had to transition from a stiff knee sleeve to an SBD, a little bit of a more traditional soft knee sleeve, and I really haven't been able to find my groove. And I think that this Saturday session of no knee sleeves, no belt will help me really to build confidence in the squat again. So I'm moving that up from 220 all the way to 230, which is a jump from 484 to 507. I expect to have no issue doing that. 220 for 3 sets of 7 moved brilliantly. I was confident, moved well. Then on the Sunday, moving on to Sunday, that was bench deadlift, bench pause deadlift. I did 177.5 kilos, which is, gosh, the pounds is a weird number, I'm sure, like 386 or something like that. 391, might be 391. I think it's 391. 3 sets of 6, 6 sets of 3 on bench, and then that moved well. No real issue. Only going to move it up 2.5 kilos. I'll get into that, but I have a little bit of a tightness in my shoulder and my upper neck. I'll get into that later. And then the deadlift went well. I only did 270 kilos, which is 595, which is pretty much as low as I'll ever deadlift anymore. But it's a week one. I just really wanted it to go smoothly, go easy, go quick, and it moved brilliantly. I didn't want my secondary deadlift to be heavier than my primary of the week. And I also just wanted it to move brilliantly well, and it moved well. I should say unless, that's a good lesson for the next time I film one of these. that was my Sunday. Then Monday, I did squats again. This session was also very promising. I did 6 sets of 3 on squat with 240 kilos, which is 518 pounds, I believe. And that moved well. That is my first trainings video, so that's actually posted, that whole session, with a 187 kilo bench press single, 413 pounds. That session moved well. I used a softer pair of knee sleeves for that session, an old pair that I actually got from somebody else who had used them for 2.5 years, and then I've used them now for like 2.5 years. So they're an old, worn out pair of knee sleeves, and I did pause 6 sets of 3 with 240, and it moved well. It's smooth. Looking to transition that from 240 to 250 for next week, from to 250 is 551 pounds. I expect to have no issue doing that. Feel confident, feels good. Squats are feeling good this past week, and I'm really looking forward to pushing them and hoping they continue to feel great. Bench, that day moved again quite well. No issue, moved technically pretty good. I was maybe a little bit lazy with my pauses and the early reps. That caused me to have issues moving it technically well on my top single, but it moved fine. The real point of that training is to have the exposure with a single. I got that in. Then on Tuesday, yesterday, a little bit of a nightmare day. My intention was to do a 6x6 with 165 kilos, which is, I believe, 364 pounds. And I did 1 set with that weight, and then that set went terrible. I'd woken up as a result of having woken up with a tight neck and upper back on my left side. It's not really shoulder related, but as a result, it's trap related, I guess, on the left side, and I can't pull myself into position exactly the right way without some discomfort. And so I only got 1 set done at the weight I wanted, but I did 5 more at 160 kilos, which is the normal weight that I do this training at anyway. So I got it in, the session in with the weight I would normally, the minimum weight that I would normally like to get it done in, so no real loss. But it does mean that I'm not really pushing bench next week as hard as I would like to. And I'm keeping that session also at 160 for next week, where I would have wanted it to be, again, at minimum 165, or again at 165 or more, actually. Bench has been feeling really strong, so it's a little bit annoying that I'm having to pull back a little bit, but it shouldn't mess up my timeline in terms of my next comp too much for bench. I woke up today with a lot less stiffness, a lot less soreness, and so I'm hoping that by tomorrow I shouldn't have any issues, but I'm still gonna coast through this next week on bench without trying to push too hard, just to watch out for it. I would rather have a week where everything moves well and almost too easy as a result of this than trying to push it and getting more hurt or just being frustrated or demotivated in bench because things aren't able to move the way they should, just due to something that's kind of outside of my control. That was this past week, and I look forward to this next training week. I'm going to film all of these sessions this next week, so it should be interesting at some level. You could sort of, right now I'm not going to throw in any videos of these sessions that I'm now talking about. Maybe one day I'll start doing that. You'll like see me squatting while I'm talking, or see me benching, see me deadlifting. I'll get there one day probably. But at least for next week when I do this, there will be all of the sessions leading into that weekly recap. I sort of like how I'm talking about the SPD session, which is of course the primary session, the most important session. I'm talking about it the day before. I think a lot of times these kinds of videos are done the day after a heavy session or on the day of. But the fact of the matter is I'm very likely going to be talking about the SPD session and what I think of the SPD session while it's happening. And this way I have sort of my expectations for tomorrow. I hit the session, I talk about how the session's going, and so you get that direct feedback of essentially the before and the after. And so I'm kind of looking forward to this approach. I think it's beneficial for me as an athlete to be analyzing my training in this way and to be talking about it. Because a lot of the times I think athletes can get stuff in their heads, or stuff stuck in their heads of ideas and goals and numbers, and then they get too hyper fixated on that. But if I'm talking to a camera and I tell the camera, hey, I had a bad session, I've got a stiff neck, tell them, okay, next week we're gonna go heavy as hell on bench, that's not a good strategy. It's not gonna be successful in the long run. So it helps you, it's gonna, I think, help me to sort of analyze my approach a bit more and to be more honest with myself and my coach moving forward. Yeah, hope you enjoy this next week of training. I'm looking forward to it.